these are the notes about hurricanes, and then when we get back into class, we're also going to talk about some other extreme weather. So think about whatever questions you might have about just any other type of extreme weather. So we'll talk about some news coverage. I don't know how many of you guys remember Hurricane Katrina, but there have been some major hurricanes, especially in our area a lot of times in recent years. What is a hurricane? Hurricanes are intense tropical cyclones with a maximum sustained speed of at least 65 knots or 74 miles per hour. Hurricanes form in the warm waters of the world. In the western Pacific, they're called typhoons, and then in the Indian Ocean, they're called cyclones. They usually form from some old low-pressure system or tropical wave. If the wave develops circulation and reaches winds of 35 knots or 39 miles per hour, they're tropical storms, and then they get a name. The physical makeup of the storm. Hurricanes have a diameter of less than 100 miles to over 500 miles. So they can be really huge or not really that big. They have a more or less circular eye, which may be well defined in stronger storms. So if you take a look at the picture here, right in the center, that would be what's called the eye of the hurricane. The hurricane's power. They're ranked on a scale of 1 to 5, which is called the Saffir-Simpson scale. A lot of the times you'll hear about probably the ones that come past us are like 1s, maybe 2s. But I believe Hurricane Katrina was a 5 that hit the Gulf Coast. And then a 1 would be a minimal hurricane with winds of 74 to 95 miles per hour, whereas a 5 is a catastrophic storm with winds at 150 miles per hour plus. And then the dangers from hurricanes. In the U.S., most people that die from hurricanes are killed by freshwater flooding. So 59% of the people that die because of hurricanes die from all of the extra rain that is put into the area. Wind and wind damage, 12%. Offshore issues would be 11%. The tornadoes that might form from hurricanes would be 4%. Other issues would be 2%, and then a storm surge, almost like a tsunami, where you have a big wave of water that comes in, but it's not a tsunami because it's not caused from an earthquake underwater. And then I'm going to guess that this word right here is surf, which means that you're on the shore of the ocean, perhaps surfing in the water with a hurricane because of the big waves, and then you get carried out to sea and die. Worldwide, most die from the storm surge. So why do you think that would happen? A storm surge killing a lot of people over in the world. To answer that question, let's take a look at a storm surge. So you've got mean sea level, which would be the average sea level, right here at this line. And then a high tide means the tide's going to go up, and we're saying here by 2 feet. And then during the storm, the tide is actually going to be increased to 17 feet. So then you have this extra 15 feet that makes that storm surge. And then there's nowhere for that 15 feet of water to go but up onto the land. In the U.S., our warning system is so good that people along the coast know when a storm is coming. But think about people in other areas, not maybe quite as high of an income as the U.S., perhaps like a third world country. They don't have our type of warning system. In many parts of the world, people don't know that they need to leave when there's a hurricane coming, so you get all of this major destruction right close to the edge of the shore. Freshwater flooding was the #1 cause of death in the U.S. Do you remember from the graph, the #2 cause of death by hurricane in the U.S.? It was the wind. Take a look at this piece of wood that was driven into the palm tree. It looks like it's a piece of plywood, and then you can see the palm tree here was just growing, and it actually went into and through that tree without breaking the tree. That's how powerful the wind is in these storms. Flying objects in the wind can be very dangerous. When is the official starting date for the Atlantic hurricane season? Perhaps we would know the answers to these coming questions just because of where we live and how we're affected by hurricanes. What is the last day of hurricane season? The Atlantic season begins June 1st and ends November 30th. And then based on where you are, like the Pacific has different dates, but we live on the Atlantic, so that's all I've got here for you. During which month do we have the largest number of hurricanes? On the average, there are 10 named storms a year, and historically, September is the month with the most named storms. In the past, we've kind of gotten this moved into the end of August. A couple of school years ago, we had a hurricane right at the end of August when the teachers had gone back to work, but school hadn't started yet. And then one year, I missed some school because we had a hurricane the very first week of school one year. Hurricanes that have impacted our area. The Great Atlantic Hurricane of 1944. Here was the track it took up from the Caribbean, out in the Atlantic, and then up the shore. This storm had a reported sustained winds of 134 miles per hour, so just under a Category 5. And that was at the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay, so that was really close to us. And sustained just means the winds are able to hold at blowing at 134 miles per hour. Hurricane Hazel in 1954 came right up the coast and right through, looks like where about Richmond would have been. Caused a great deal of damage to the Tidewater area with sustained winds in excess of 100 miles per hour. One of the few Category 5 storms to hit the U.S. was Hurricane Camille in 1969. 113 people died in Virginia due to the heavy rains and flash floods, and Richmond was flooded. Take a look at the path here. That's amazing that it stayed so strong all the way through all that land. And then Hurricane Floyd in 1999. I was alive for this, and I remember it. Hurricane Floyd caused a great deal of flooding and power outages from fallen trees. Notice all of the rain bands, all these blue things coming off of it. I remember I woke up on the morning this storm was happening, and my parents were still in bed, and they were always up before me. I couldn't believe they were still in bed, and I didn't realize that we weren't going to school because of this hurricane. She told me to go back to bed because we weren't going to school. Here's a little bonus question. What two things will kill or weaken a hurricane? Think about the things that are needed for a hurricane to form. Cold water and land. So here's a little review. A hurricane must have a sustained wind of at least how many miles per hour? 74 miles per hour in order to be a Category 1 storm. Question number 2. Hurricanes are called what in the Western Pacific? Typhoons. Question number 3. What is the name of the hurricane intensity scale? Kind of a weird name. Saffir-Simpson. Number 4. What aspect about hurricanes kills the most people in the U.S.? That would be the freshwater flooding. Number 5. When does the Atlantic hurricane season officially begin? June 1st. And the last question. What Category 5 hurricane killed over 100 people in Virginia? Hurricane Camille.